my computer. We're recording. Let's see. Oh, this ain't Poor People's Campaign. This is my church one.
You feel that working, or you just let me know when we're going live. We're streaming.
I think we might be streaming right now. I'm putting in, not yet. I'm putting in the thing. I'll take that back. I just want to make sure. Lord knows.
We're about to start streaming in a second. Sure.
All right, we are going live right now. I'll do a little intro and then we'll talk. It's informal conversation. You know how it is.
Yep.
I want to hear what you're doing in Atlanta too. My church wants to hear what you're doing in Atlanta.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Father Charles T. Myers, and I am the pastor of the Episcopal Church of St. John the Baptist, and here in Orlando, Florida, in the historic Washington Shores neighborhood. I want to welcome everybody to another episode of the Forerunner. And today I have the privilege to talk to a brother from another mother, my friend, my brother, Kenny Eubanks. And we're going to be talking about anything from voting in Georgia to the church and the pandemic and the protests, and where do we see the church after COVID and everything in between. So without further ado, I'll let Kenny introduce himself, and then we'll go from there.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Well, my name is Ken. CT, he's always gonna call me Kenny Eubanks because that's what we grew up.
You'll always call me CT. So
listen, we've been friends since before we knew what friends were. Like literally since babies. We were brought up in ministry together. We've done some of everything together over the years. So he's one of the people that I definitely call a true friend. I know that if I need spiritual counseling or advice or anything, he's a person that I can always call on. He's always been that person for me. So yeah, CT, that's my brother. I don't care what anyone says. That's my bro or whatever. Well, as far as me, I now go by the name of Kendoll Brinkley Brown. I am an artist, musician, philanthropist. I'm an activist. I do a lot of work with the election cycles here in Georgia. In fact, this has definitely been one of the busier cycles for me. I thought it was going to be over, but you know, we're going to a recount here in Georgia, which isn't going to change anything. After which, of course, we initially had a runoff that was scheduled for the for mid-December, which was I think it was our state. It was a state runoff that they had for the state elections, and then we had the federal runoff that was going to be in January. But luckily, they moved all of it to January. You know, I'm keeping busy, just working and trying to, you know, stay away from Corona and all that. But you know,
Yes, Lord. When you took me back when you were talking about the days when you used to play the organ and I used to preach in
Yeah.
different places, and we would do our best to bring people together in our small town of Palaca. We'd go and be in churches, white churches, black churches. It didn't matter what church. We were there doing stuff and trying to come together. So I knew that doing this new broadcast for the church, that I wanted you just to come and just hang out with me, because this might be the only time I always get to see you in some way or another, but also just hear your heart about things, because I've always respected your counsel and your opinion, because we've always had this prophetic insight of where to go. And so before we get to the election, let's talk about the pandemic and protest, and the role of the church in this pandemic and protest, and how both of these as bookends has shaped us in ways, especially the church. And how does the church respond? What is the role of the church and the voice of the church, not only in the pandemic, but in the protests, and how they intersect?
Okay.
So wherever you want to pick up on that, you can just go pick up and go.
Okay. Well, as it relates to the pandemic, one of the major things that I've been kind of pushing with that is what we can do as far as our own readiness. Black and brown people definitely have been affected by Corona disproportionately. And it has a lot to do with, cultural eating, our eating habits, the way that we eat, what we're used to eating, what we've grown accustomed to eating, and and basically it's, we could change a lot in terms of how our bodies respond if we do contract COVID, if we would prepare now. I've been recommending it to all of my friends, like cut out red meat, cut out beef, cut out pork, all of the things. Personally, I'm vegan, so I eat a plant-based diet, and I haven't had any issues as it relates to, the coronavirus. Also, we've noticed that there's a lack of the D3 vitamin in individuals who have contracted COVID, and so I've definitely been trying to get individuals to get on a D3 supplement. If you can get it with K2. Brown people, we have melanin, and that blocks our ability to contract our vitamin D from the sun. So we don't get as much as a person who doesn't have as much melanin in their skin as we do. So that's something that we have to be mindful of. Also, I've been trying to get all of my friends to start taking sea moss. Sea moss is completely natural. It grows in the ocean, and it has 92 of the 102 minerals that our body is made up of. A lot of the times we have deficiencies as it relates to our health because of the fact that our bodies can't absorb the vitamins and the nutrients that we need. These minerals help you to be able to absorb those nutrients. It's one thing to take, medication or supplements and things like that, but if your body isn't in its prime to be able to absorb those and take advantage of those, sometimes it kind of can, it's not really serving a purpose. So if we, basically just taking care of yourself, being more conscious about what you eat, what you consume. You are what you eat. If you continue to consume things that are dead, that's a whole another topic for another day, as far as that's concerned. Now, as it relates to the church in the pandemic, my question is, where are the prophets?
What do you mean? I know you got a word.
The prophets? Like the prophets, they can tell you, they tell you, about this new car you're going to be getting in, you got a check coming in the mail, and, we hear the prosperity, preachers as far as the prophets and everything are concerned, but where were the prophets when the pandemic came around? The only prophet that I know of that actually nailed it and has continued to nail it has been Bishop E. Bernard Jordan. And literally everything that he's spoken has come to pass as it relates to this pandemic. And one of the things that he's been talking about is how the brick and mortar is out of order. We've come to a time where the church has to begin to do church differently. we always talk about the church without walls and the fact that hold on, I'm sorry, hold on just for a second for me. Okay, I'm sorry, had a bit of a distraction. Okay,
No problem.
But as it relates to the church, we've got to start to think outside of the box in terms of how we do church. We've got so caught up in the religion of it all. We have that conversation all the time. But here's another where it's definitely religious for us to go to the actual sanctuary and to be amongst our parishioners and everyone else. And to congregate and to fellowship and to do all of those things. But now is not the time for that. We're in the middle of a pandemic and, all of the hallelujahs and the praise the Lords, those are peas and ha's and there are a lot of spit and stuff is coming out,
Mm-hmm.
Not smart for us to be gathering in the churches the way that, some people have been. And it was just disappointing to me to see that so many men and women of God just refuse to, abide by the science. And, God has not given us the spirit of fear and, faith over fear. And, but God also gives us common sense, and I don't believe, I've never been one to believe God for things that I can do on my own. Without God, I can do nothing. Without Christ, I cannot do anything, but he gives us the strength.
Right.
We can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And those things that he strengthens, that he's given us the strength to do, it just baffles me while we sit around and we act as though he didn't already empower us to do it. If we want to get over this pandemic, the science has told us, that we could have saved 100,000 lives if everyone would have just worn masks. Between now and the inauguration, we can save another 100,000 if everyone would just wear masks. So it's a lot that I don't understand about people's, perceptions of the pandemic. Yes, we have, leadership right now who clearly ignores science, but not all of the individuals who's ignoring the science are followers of this particular leader. So I can't blame, we can't necessarily blame Trump for, some people's actions, because some people just do what they want to do when they want to do it, how they want to do it, without regard for how it affects or impacts other individuals. But yeah, so the church is definitely at a time where we've definitely got to start taking advantage of platforms such as Zoom, like you're doing now. You can still get the word out. You can still, preach of God's love, his mercy and his grace, and not put his people in jeopardy, by congregating.
We saw that, like at our particular church, we did, like, I would say, a soft opening. Like, our bishop gave us guidelines, like boom, 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 boom. And, when the pandemic hit, we only had like 10 people in our church. And it was the 10 people who put on the church service. That's what it was. And then, the numbers were going down a little bit. We did a soft opening. And I think we may have 10, we may had 20 people in there in a sanctuary that holds about 200. So everybody's socially distancing. And I told him, I said, because there's just some people who are going to come. Even in my older congregation, we're going to come to church. But we're social distancing. We're a mask. We got people taking temperatures. We put your name in the roll, so contact tracing, and then people wiping down everything. We've taken every safety precaution. I wear a mask at times. Sometimes I wear a face shield because I can't hear myself, and going out on YouTube. And then sometimes when I preach, I'll take off the mask, but I'm far away from anybody as I'm preaching. So just taking those precautions. But the thing about it is, you mentioned technology. You and I have talked about technology in the church and how to help people get into, quote unquote, the 21st century. And one thing this kind of pandemic did is that it forced a lot of people who didn't have technology to get on the bandwagon because they had no choice. I'm very thankful that our church, right before I became pastor, was already doing YouTube, already doing online giving. And then we put in kind of an AV project. And I wasn't sure during the pandemic if we could finish the visual part of that, and I was kind of prepared for that until the AV team comes to me and goes, Father, we need to finish the project. Because now I got people who are at home seeing what people see, because they never did, because they were in church. They're like, oh yeah, we need to finish it. So a lot of it catalyzed us into that using Zoom. I think but with the technology, sometimes in our generation, we get burnt out on technology because we use it so much.
Right.
And we do miss that tangibility. But with an older generation in churches, and I've seen that in mine, people are just discovering like Zoom and using Zoom for the first time and getting a computer with a good camera. And I've realized that my Zoom Bible study that we do on Tuesday, and then we kind of put out on Facebook and YouTube, has more people in it than I did on Wednesday night. People coming out, and it's been great. I've enjoyed doing Bible study and doing that. And then we have Zoom happy hour twice. We call it Zoom. I tell people for church, for Bible studies, BYOB, bring your own Bible. And then for Zoom happy hour, BYOB, I'm not asking what you got in that cup. We laugh about that, but it's just a way of connecting and trying to stay connected. The way we've done funerals. I remember pre-pandemic, or like on the cusp, before the crackdown came on us in March, we were only limited like 30 people for a funeral. And then we've had to do at times only like maybe 10 or 15, and then we would film it for people. A lot of people have done graveside services, so at least we were able to have some kind of way to mourn the loss. And then sometimes I've done funerals, I said, oh Lord, we in the midst of about 30, 35 folks, at a funeral home, not at the church. I don't have control of that. And then I was like, Lord, I got my mask on, just, protect us all. Because of that. But it opened up doing church differently, being on Zoom, being on this, and being connected. But I do think that it has forced the church, because our Trinity sometimes is butts, budgets, and buildings. That's who we worship.
Butts, budgets, and
buildings. That's our Trinity. If I ask how your church is doing, you're going to tell me about those three things in some way, somehow. And there's nothing wrong with those things, because you need those things to make things go. So I'm not saying that. But what I've learned is, how do we repurpose our building right now? And so we've kept our food pantry open. And we've been feeding over 250 individuals a week, delivering to people, partnering with community organizing, that people who've never had limited church or never been inside a church, get to step in for a little bit to help deliver this food. Where do you see the church post-pandemic? Then we'll get into the protest. So where do you see the church post-pandemic? How would church look? And from your perspective.
Well, I see a big it's definitely going to be a news flash for those who think that we're going to go back to church as it's always been. I honestly think that because of the convenience of people being able to stay at home, it's just more convenient. Hang on. The little doggies are going crazy here. Okay, so what was I saying?
The convenience of it.
It's convenience. It's convenient for people to stay home, and it's a lot safer. But I really think that what's happening now is that COVID is really exposing who has a word and who doesn't. Now you only have this little box that you're in.
Right.
We're not seeing what kind of shoes you got on. We're not seeing how quick your feet are when you're getting your dance on. We're not, you just can't give a bunch of rhetoric and expect individuals to tune into you and to pay attention to you and to follow you. So now it's really being exposed, those preachers that, depend on the theatrics of being in the pulpit versus those who are word-driven or word-based. And I think that's going to be another big eye-opening moment for a lot of ministries once the pandemic does subside, once they're trying to go back into that particular realm. How can I say that? I don't believe that all churches or, every aspect of the church is going to be closed down. Like you
Right.
talked about earlier, it's about learning how to repurpose those buildings, because the building is not the church, and, whether that be a sound stage for you to be able to, push out those, Bible study meetings and the Zoom calls and, and every, your Sunday services, all of that, or whatever the case is. I just don't see, I don't see it going back to the church as we have known it. And then it's like now, yes, a lot of people, they have their, their overseeing pastor or presiding bishops. But a lot of people now, they because there are so many options and so many more, orators of the word that are out now. There's it's easier to assess to access it, basically. Because there's so many preachers out now that, again, like you said, everyone has been kind of forced to go digital. So It's like people have options now, whereas some church people, they would go and they would sit up under a pastor for years just because that's what their family did, and because they've been there for generation after generation after generation after generation. And just the weirdness of the world and everything that's been going on now, especially during this pandemic, has caused people to really seek for a word from God. And like I said, a lot of those churches is just gonna, I see a lot of churches closing their doors within the next few years, and even soon. And it's not because they can't keep a church necessarily. It's because they aren't. Mackenzie, please. Mackenzie. Shh. I have no control over the puppies right now.
No, that's fine.
But yeah, if they embrace the technology, then they'll be fine. But there's still a lot of I know some of them that are still focused on trying to get their doors back open, and you can still get your offerings online. You can still receive your tithes online. But they definitely got to embrace that technology. I don't think it's going to be the same.
Well, yeah, I think the technology is here to stay, and I think improving on that technology and doing that. What in that you're able to see so many things. Now, you and I will listen to we listen to a lot of people or some kind of podcast because our generation. But how will this make us more consumeristic with our spirituality as we're consumeristic with everything else? How do we guard against that consumerism in the midst of this technology? Or do we? Or can we?
Well, one of the things that I've been noticing with some of the podcasts is like with some of the worship streams, I guess it's because they're used to being able to be in front of a crowd and kind of shift the emotion of the atmosphere and set the tone, and and get in to people's head spaces, as far as like the worship and and get people engaged and get them into that spirit of giving. That way, it's like now what I'm seeing more so of is, if it's a 45-minute stream, there may be 20 minutes of word and 45 minutes of chatter about giving, sometimes more.
Right.
Now my mom's calling me. Hang on, let me decline that. Okay. Yeah. So, I it's really about just reinventing like things like that. It's I don't know. We got to think outside of the box. Like get some T-shirts or something, or And then sell some T-shirts. Do some, do something.
Get some business up.
Get some business out there. Do something other than just. It's just like, I don't know.
Do you think this is going to catalyze two things? I'll do my second thought first. Do you think that once we can gather and where people feel safe, do you feel that even in these gatherings that there will be, instead of the bigger crowds, however people define big in their context, that there will be smaller groups just kind of gathering together, doing the life of the church? Do you see that as kind of the byproduct of coming out of COVID?
I see ministry teams,
Okay.
Ministry teams, small groups that just come together for the sake of producing, the content, and I think that's pretty much where it needs to go. Honestly, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Lord. You brought that right to me. The way that the church can move forward and still be able to, focus on those 3 B's, especially the budget, is by creating content. Create content. It's no different than, a journalist having a YouTube channel, or, just a blogger having, a video blog or something to that effect. The same way that, we do children's church and we have, our Easter services where children do their speeches and they read their poems and they, recite their recitations. All of those things can be created into creative content, and set up a platform that will allow you to monetize and be able to, get those streams. If you're providing good content, if you are a person who is able to bring forth the word in a way that, engages people, then it won't be an issue for you, and I think that's probably the thing that most individuals are missing. I've seen, and I see a lot of streams on Facebook. Facebook doesn't allow you to monetize, generally speaking. You can use, there's like software like Restream.io. If you go to Restream.io, it gives you the ability with the membership to stream to multiple platforms at one time, so you can still, garner your Facebook traffic. But you can also stream to YouTube. And then the other thing is setting your, formatting the text of your post in a way that they're search engine friendly. We call that search engine optimization. So I would recommend that not only these pastors and leaders of media ministries, not only do they engage in the technology, but actually begin to take some courses on how these particular platforms work. How do the algorithms work as far as, YouTube is concerned? Then there's Twitch that's also, allowing for you to monetize now. Monetizing through Twitch. You can find, there are several platforms that are out there that will allow you to, bring in revenue from doing the same thing that you've been doing every Sunday. The only difference is now you're recording it, and you're posting up for the world to see. We actually have the ability to reach so many more people, by it being online now. So
everybody, in a matter of about 2 days, everybody became a televangelist.
Yeah.
I had to get used to not moving around as much preaching, or because at that point we only had one camera like right in front. We hadn't got our visual stuff in, so I had to, if I move, I got to move forward towards the camera and learning those kind of things that people say, hey, and a friend of mine who's coming to be with us at our church named Silver, love for you, because he's a media guy too and does the behind the scenes, and he's talking about the web page, and he's like, oh yeah, the first thing we need to do is help you with your web page. I said, thank you, because I've been praying for somebody. But he was talking about that same thing, that search engine, that kind of thing. And I said, I am willing to do the work on my end, whatever I have to write to do that. So yeah, because I've always said that if the church is not present in the pandemic, it won't have the moral voice to be present afterwards, and post-pandemic. And speaking of being a moral voice, the protests that happened this summer and what the role of the church of showing up or not showing up. I would see your Facebook lives from the protests, especially in Atlanta, and doing other things. Where did you see the role of the church? Was the church present? How can we be present in this ongoing conversation? Talk about that and your perspective, and since you were down in the trenches.
Truthfully, at the protest, I don't remember seeing any specific church entity that was there. I do know that, but there were some members of, that just happened to be, there were some people who just happened to be members of certain churches that, I always see, when we have, during the election cycles, they're bringing bottles of water to individuals that are in line. So I saw a lot of that during the protest, just, individuals, just doing everything that they could to assist. A lot, I heard a lot during the protest that, I'm not, I can't get out there and do all of that protesting, but, I'll contribute. So I had a lot of individuals who, would send, who would contribute masks, bottled waters. At one point we were giving away towels. It was like all types of little things that we were, just kind of handing out just to, because we were in the midst of the pandemic then, as well. And that was when it was really starting to, kick off. So it's like, we want to make our voices heard, but we also want to protect ourselves and make sure that we're, again, following the science and doing, everything that we can to abide by the CDC guidelines. So as far as the church is concerned, during the protest, I didn't really.
What about having a voice on the issues as well? Was the church speaking to the issues? They might not have been protesting, but leaders speaking against the racism, speaking, things of that nature.
That was your baseline, talk about, Black Lives Matter and just the different disenfranchisements that we've seen in the media, with especially with like George Floyd and some of the others. But I honestly think that the church was so caught off guard by the pandemic.
Yeah.
That they, like, many of them didn't really have time to really engage or focus in on any other activity, because most churches didn't have media ministry set up. Most churches didn't already have a stream, so it was, a little difficult for some of them to, I guess, be present in that particular moment. Of course, everyone spoke out after, the death of, George Floyd and, things of that sort. And I would see some of the preachers, present during marches. And, that was really the only time that I saw a lot of them, when we would pull together a big march and there were going to be cameras, and, then we'd see, a lot of people showing up for photo ops, but when, it was a matter of doing the grunt work to make sure that, we kept our community as safe as possible. I could have missed it, or it could have been in another part of the city, or doing, something else that I wasn't privy to. But I honestly I can't recall, like, there's no church that really, like, stands out here in Atlanta that really just, like, wow, they were really there. They really showed up. We had Reverend Raphael Warnock, who, of course, he was outspoken, about everything that was going on. But I can't negate the fact that he also is running for Senate, as well. Would he have been a voice if he weren't running for Senate? I'm sure he would have.
Yeah.
Because, I've seen him present during several other, functions prior to, the same with Bishop O.C. Allen. Like, he, he's he has a consistent record
Right.
of doing and being a social justice advocate. So individuals like that, that they've always been doing it. So I didn't take anything, extra from that. But I really didn't see, a lot of, people. I saw a lot of preachers and pastors show up when it was time for, the marches and things of that sort. But when it was, when it was the organization and just the grunt work and the protesting and being out there, I don't recall seeing any preachers like on the front line during the protest. Not to say that that's where they should have been.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is not for everyone, and everyone
Right.
chooses to participate in whatever way, God leads them, or whatever way they're,
Right.
They're able to. Like I said before, some people, they got bad knees, so they can't go
Yeah.
out and stand all day long. But again, they would send me a cash app for $10 to get a couple cases of water.
Right. And I think that's I was always, because we had protests just about every other day in Orlando, and I knew pastoring an older congregation, especially in our community, that I picked and choose when I went. Like I had a friend in Apopka, next door, had a small one. I knew it'd be socially distanced. I did do a Juneteenth because I got invited at the last minute to speak. I wasn't, jonesing for it or anything like that. I've done some smaller rallies with the unions, but, I also knew being out there, and that was when COVID was, spiking really high. And I went to my advisors. We had a big march here in Orlando with the faith community. And I go, "Are you going?" He says, "No," because he does have health issues. But I said, "Sir, we've been out every day. We were down at the county chambers talking about different things before this happened. So, we'll let some folks who haven't gotten their feet wet get their feet wet in this, But it is. And, where is the church? Because not only are we in a divided nation right now, we're in a divided church that's divided by politics.
Yeah.
And, I'll say it.
I just call it straight hypocrisy. That's what I call it.
Where you have abuses of spiritual gifts, prophesying for particular people to win, calling African angels.
I hear the smell of victory. I hear the smell of victory.
And all that. And I'm like, and, I was this was my tongue-in-cheek response. I was so thankful that this past Sunday, we do a lectionary reading, which are set readings, and there was a reading from Amos, and it's the famous one from Amos 5, "Let justice roll." And I just had a field day with that one. I'm like, do you really want God to show up? Do you want the day of the Lord to come? Really? You want God to show up in your situation? You might not. You might not like what he's going to do. And I said, well, the Lord did say it was done. There was victory. For whom? I said, sometimes some of these people are having
for the least of them.
That's it. For Balaam and Caiaphas, they know not what they speak. They think they're speaking it one way, and God's like, I'm going to take your curse and turn it into a blessing because you're not going to mess this up. But just the abuse of that we've seen, where pockets of the church have lost their moral voice. And I would say pockets of the church with my hue color has lost their moral voice. When I preach at St. John's, I said, the people who are introduced Jesus again for the first time to America are going to be marginalized churches, African-American churches, Latinx churches, churches who have been on the margins in various ways. They're the ones who are going to speak and introduce people to Jesus again for the first time. Because it's not going to be the churches who sold Jesus out for more than 30 pieces of silver to Caesar.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be a reckoning with that too. There's going to have to be a reflection and reckoning in the way that the American dream has controlled the church and the American narrative of white supremacy as well. These things are going to have to be reckoned with to have any voice anymore. And I think this is the last gasp. I won't say the last gasp because we're such a reactionary, but this is a gasp of exposing that. And so, yeah, I believe that it's in some ways, it is the day of judgment.
Yeah, America's being judged for its original sin.
And we have not dealt with that original sin.
And it has not been dealt with. It's been swept under the rug and swept under the rug and swept under the rug. And it's, again, like I said a few minutes ago, the least of them. The church has been so focused on an agenda that they've turned a blind eye to that which is being done to the least of them. That which you've done unto the least of them, you've done unto me. I don't understand it for the life, man. I don't understand the whole pro-life argument. You know, you're pro-life when they're in the womb, you know, but, you know, what about the quality of that child's life?
Right.
You know, what about, what about the socioeconomic gaps that, you know, plague brown and black communities? You know, what about the lack of access to healthcare and the lack of access to jobs and that give individuals quality of life? What, like, I don't understand how anyone who calls them, and you know, maybe it's, you know, let every man work out his own soul salvation. Their relationship with God is their relationship with God. That's between them and God. They'll have to answer for whatever they do or don't do. That's not my business. But when it's at the point where you're literally crying, God, we know you are pro-life. You're pro-life. Let the one man is pro-life and one man isn't. You know, raise up the pro-life. You know, it's just like, what in the world is going on? Like, what is going on? Like, it's, you know, I can't grasp that for the life of me. You won't wear, you know, you won't wear a mask. You know, like you won't follow CDC guidance, you know, and guidelines, but you're pro-life. What about the thousands upon thousands, I mean, the hundreds of thousands of people that have, you know, have died from COVID? Like,
and it does, you know, that right there, you know, what does it mean to be pro-life? You know, if being anti something doesn't make you pro for something else.
Yeah, you're pro-conception. What are you like?
and I do remember being at a conference and asking this question. And it was in a multicultural setting. You know, why do we care for the neighbor we don't see, and really don't care for the neighbor we do see? And that was in the context. The context was, you know, we will go and feed the children across the world. And we need to help out with that. I'm not knocking that.
Yeah.
But not feed the children who are in the inner city.
Yeah.
You'll feed Richard from Uganda, but not, Ricardo from the inner city, or this person or that person in a poor neighborhood, whoever that is, and whatever. And I'm like, I don't understand that. And I don't understand when it comes to poverty. You know me, I grew up poor and white in the South, in Palatka.
Okay.
You know, you and I bonded over because we all praying for our next meal to come in. We're doing the same thing, and our mamas were praying for it too. working, being raised in a single parent home and stuff like that. And I said, and this has always been my heart. I'm like, if poor whites and African Americans and Latinx would come together and quit fighting from the crumbs from the table and listen to the whispers that other, and that other is usually a racial epithet, is getting your crumb, and realize if there's crumbs from the table, there's a table where we all should be sitting at.
Right.
And if we can't sit at that table, why don't we make our own table? But it has been that they're getting this, them. You're not this, but you're better than them. And I'm like, do we not see this happening in our country? Because the last campaign Martin Luther King had was the Poor People's Campaign that Dr. Barber has picked up the mantle, and I work with, and a proud supporter of, and work on leadership levels. Because if you unite the poor together, then it has to change. But if you keep the poor divided, and the poor marginalized and pitted against one another, then you've got the soul of the nation. And we haven't acknowledged our original sin of racism. And if we don't, as many people have said, we're just going to go through this cycle over and over and over again.
Well, it's here. Like, whether America wants to or not, it's a matter where they're being forced to deal with it, to recognize it. It's if you think about how it's shaped the political climate. It's and a lot of I was hearing a lot of stuff like when individuals, like especially up here, like the riots and oh my God, they tore this city up, or whatever. And people were like, why are you encouraging? I'm not encouraging anything violent or whatever, but this was bound to happen.
Right.
This was bound to happen. So I'm not going to sit back and try to tell someone else how to deal with their anger, because I know I'm pissed,
right.
in terms of how things have been going and the things that we've continuously seen, and and people getting killed every other week by cops, and then there's all of these excuses, as to, well, if they weren't doing this or if they weren't doing that, well, no, great. Yes, some people are mischievous, but not all of them, and a lot of those, the majority of those were not warranted. Taking someone's life, like, if you're in, some serious danger or whatever, and I guess that, that's how they get off, because it was perceived danger. It's just like, and then the other part with the whole police thing and all of that is, like, I was in the U.S. Army or whatever, and we were taught about the Geneva Convention Code and the rules of engagement, and we could not just fire our weapons, just because we felt like we were in danger, like there was protocol, there was a certain time for you too. There was, we had leaders in place to, give orders as to what our next strategy was. We moved as a platoon, we moved as a team or whatever. And it's just like, I don't know but then again, if you think about how many hours, it's required to become a cop, literally some basic trainings, for the military, and you going through your school, like you spend more time, training for the military than you do to be a cop. And literally the police are like, the military on a local a local level. So it just poses me to how, we don't have the training, they don't receive, that particular, an extensive amount of training. I think it's last I saw one, it was like 90 something hours or like, I just don't understand it for the life of me. Like, I'm not for the funding as they, I just didn't understand that messaging either. Did you? Why did we use that messaging? Defund. Like, why didn't we come up with something else? Like other.
Right. I think most people translate it here and there. I know some of my very, very leftist friends would defund the whole thing. I think most people would say, can we reallocate those resources to mental health? Can police get mental health training? Have somebody come out with them as well? You know, you've heard the various things about it. Yeah, you know, and happy Veterans Day, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I was thinking, I said, I know Kenny was in the military, but I think I was thinking Navy because for some reason, but I said, I knew, because I remember he went, how long were you in the military?
4 years.
That's right, because you went off
US
and then
Army.
you came back. But yeah, I do think that. I think there needs to be training. There needs to be, because you got these young kids, and you know how it is. Young kids who may not be able to do anything else, becomes a cop, and it goes to their head. Not everybody. I'm not saying that, so don't get it twisted.
Right.
But you do have that. So now you got a kid, you know, in a situation, and they don't have the proper training. So I think we need to overhaul how we train people, how we the role of mental health, and what kind of service does that person need?
Right.
You know, who can, do that, bring somebody over, say, bring this person. Just like at times, police will have chaplains to go with them in case, there's some big tragic thing. We need mental health. We need other things. Right. And so I agree with you on that. But I do understand from my people who are very much protesting on that particular issue. But yeah, we've had, and here in Florida, our governor is trying to basically criminalize protesting, and that you can shoot. Stand your ground laws are coming into play. That if looting or 500, you get a felony, and they can shoot you. Mm-hmm. And so we are, as the Poor People's Campaign, protesting against that particular one because it's taking away a fundamental right, and it affects our communities of color that we serve. But I do have a question, and I know you got somebody coming in, but what is the role, from your perspective, of white allies in this fight? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Talk to me.
One of the conversations that I had with one of my white counterparts, and I shared this with you earlier, was about the socioeconomic gaps between Black and brown people and and whites. That's that stems back generations. For those of our white sisters and brothers that are allies, in my opinion, the best thing that you can do is to speak to other white people about this privilege. I find constantly that, I don't know if it's just it's just if it's denial or and I honestly believe that some of them just really don't know. It's a level of ignorance. I look at it no different than I look at with my advocacy work for the trans community. There are a lot of issues within the trans community that many individuals in the gay lifestyle or the lesbian lifestyle may hold against trans. For instance, there have been many trans women of color that have been murdered, like over, like at an alarming rate. It's just like one after the other. We find that a trans woman has been attacked or or been killed or or been beat up by a mob or something to that effect. And then some of my cisgender male counterparts will come in and say, well, if they weren't doing this, or if they weren't doing that, and if they weren't doing that, and then it becomes this thing where some people of trans experience will feel that their cisgender counterparts are being transphobic towards them or whatever. And during that moment when I was trying to figure out how do we bridge the gaps between the gay and the trans community, because a lot of times the trans community doesn't feel like the gay community is there to, really step in and to be an ally to them. And, a lot of the times when some gay individuals will get upset with trans women, we hear constant misgendering and, things of that sort. And so, in my search of trying to find words and ways to, kind of assist, my counterparts in understanding the trans movement and how to like finesse it and move and, and how to be an ally, I told them that like, it is our job to rebuke us and it's their job to rebuke them. So I say the same thing as it relates to, my white counterparts, like, and yes, I did some rebuking. I've done a lot of rebuking over the course of this week with these elections and everything. But I don't think a white person will ever understand what white privilege is coming from a Black person. And I don't think it necessarily needs to be the responsibility of Black people or brown people to relay that information to, our white counterparts. I believe that should be the job of our allies. If you are,
I agree.
If you are, as they say, of the Caucasian persuasion, and you consider yourself an ally, the best thing that you can do is talk to someone else that is not. Explain to them,
I've done a lot of that in these past few weeks, just people coming to talk to me. Or I get invited, like we had a Juneteenth celebration. I get invited. Who do I address in the crowd? The white allies. That this cannot be a cavalier moment, rah, rah, rah. This has to be a Kairos moment. And this is not for, I got my selfies for Facebook and stuff like that. This is, you got to be committed to this. And I tell people that all the time. And then I have some people who do come in and who just says, well, because it's the misconception of the word privilege. And that word gets misconstrued. I grew up poor, or I had to struggle. I didn't have any privilege. And for them, it's the word entitlement and privilege are used interchangeably. But I also have to tell them, you don't have to worry about driving. If you're driving in a car and you get pulled over, you don't have to worry about small offenses. You don't have to worry about those things. I pastor an African-American church, and I know in my neighborhood, I'm not going to get pulled over because of the color of my skin. Most of the time, color of my skin, and I'm usually dressed in my collar. So, but I also know that if I do see some police activity and it's near there, I'll drive by just to make sure everybody's okay. It is using, and I've had many people who are awakened, getting woke, especially white folk, and they come to me like, "What are we going to do?" I said, "You know what I've dedicated my life to. What are you going to do?" And they're genuinely wanting to. I just don't want to jump on a bandwagon because it's cool to be. I'm actually having this real awakening and kind of mentoring people going through that awakening.
Right.
As having to humbly be sitting at tables that I'm humbled to sit at. Especially in our African American neighborhoods and my own church, I'm very humbled, that God placed me there, and the people, and being in my community as well. You know, pastoring a civil rights church and continuing that with community rights. I'm humbled.
I'm not surprised. It's full circle. It's like it's like I like you. I guess in this you are the perfect you are the perfect person for today. That's because, you know, and viewers don't take this the wrong way, but CT is a black man. He just has white skin.
I'm just very humbled, but I'm also cognizant that no matter how much advocacy I do,
Right.
my skin gives me that privilege. My skin gives me privilege. That, you know, I'm very humbled by that. And, you know, I've always trusted your guidance, even with me as we talked about issues, because I realize being raised in the South, there's just certain things that are ingrained in you on a subconscious level that only get triggered at certain points. You're like, where does this thought come from? I don't think like that. So, ooh, something was passed down from generation to generation. And I don't think we talk about that.
Right. And that also comes from, again, like, that's why I tell people that was, like, I always say the worst thing they could have ever told me in church was to study to show myself approved.
Right.
Like, so you want me to read this for myself and get my own, you know, okay. You know, oh, now revelations, you know, are coming, and it's like, you know, but yeah, it's, you know, yeah, but you're like, that's when I can honestly say that you are in the prime position to be able to be at the forefront of leading the church into this new era of, you know, dealing with, you know, these racial injustices, and you know, and everything else that comes along with that. You know, you've always, and that's the difference between you and a lot of people that I've encountered. You have always you've always sought truth. You know, like, even as kids, like, we would question certain things about, you know, scripture, and, you know, like we would really just, like, dive deep in, just trying to find out, you know, what is God saying? What is the truth? What is, you know, what you know, because some things just did not make sense, and, you know, and it comes from a desire to want to know the truth. If some people, they're just, you know, they're stuck in their ways, and they're comfortable with what they've, you know, been taught, and what, you know, has been ingrained into them. And, you know, I mean, and I mean, that's okay. That's okay, because I know, you know, they're relatives of mine who, you know, who feel certain ways, and they've been like that all their lives, you know. So I get it, but, you know, when you desire to know truth, and you want to know the fullness of truth, like, it's a big difference, you know. You can't change someone, or you can't be the catalyst for change in someone who just does not want to change.
You know, I've been blessed to have you in my life. I've been blessed to have the church where I'm at, who always point out things to me too. They'll point at certain people's like, you might not want to say it like that. We know how you mean it. We know, but we don't want your message to get construed. I mean, just having that. And one of the lessons that who has helped me the most is a good friend, a mentor of mine, Dr. James Morris. And this is what he told me. He says, because we do a lot of on the ground county work, city commission work. And he says, now, Father, when you're outside preaching to the choir, you use the preacher's voice. When you're inside, you got to use your inside voice. He says, because folks will listen. And I always put it in my head, I said, and so the next time I went to speak, I said, don't worry, I'm not here as a prophet, I'm here as a priest, so you can breathe. And everybody kind of laughed at that. I said, but I did it more than a pleading. And I used my priestly voice on the inside. But, you know, when we're at rallies, it's talking about the truth. It's time to preach. Those things, I've just been very thankful. And I've been very thankful for in my own life, most of my male mentors in ministry has been from the African American church. And most of my friends in ministry, female friends in ministry as well, who has taught me, has been in, the African American church. So I've been very just blessed to have that, and to you still on?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what happened.
Because you just went blank.
Speak.
Oh, you went blank. So yeah, I'm very thankful for that, and it's because of your friendship and other people's friendship and the conversations that we've had that shaped me. I mean, that's why I tell people that all the time, and I always talk about you. I do.
So let me ask you a question, because I know, like, especially with you pastoring, a predominantly Black church,
Mm-hmm.
have you found it challenging in terms of, like, I know that you said you have those that you lean on for guidance, in terms, they'll say, don't say it like that. He told you, use your, use your preacher voice when you're outside preaching to the choir, things like that. But, I guess with us growing up, we've always kind of just had a safe space to ask whatever, however, and I know that comes from us growing up together and us just knowing each other's hearts. We knew that, any questions that were being asked were asked because, we genuinely had a desire to know and a desire to understand. So has it been at all challenging? Because I know that, coming into, and I know just from being, there, at your church for the brief time that I was there, that, they clearly see your heart. They clearly know who you are, as a man of God. But in terms of your cultural experience, because I would go as far to say that, like, you are one of, of course, like you said, there's still a certain level of privilege, but as it relates to understanding the culture and living the culture, it's not an appropriation on your part.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
That does.
So
and there are,
So how does that work with you pastoring?
Well, here's the thing. We've had a legacy of both white and Black priests at St. John's. So I'm not the first.
Okay, good. Okay.
One of the our church really grounded in the civil rights movement. Father Nelson Pender, who is still alive, and sometimes I just like to go and hear. I need to go see him and hear stories. And he'll tell me stories back from the civil rights movement. I wanted our community organizers before COVID to hear his stories. We got the first, African-American female commissioner, both county and city, who's the same person in our church.
That's content.
That's, I know. That's what I've been working on too, to get them to tell stories. I said, I need y'all to tell stories. And so I've had that. I think it's, one of the things my church did, and they told me this later, certain people, is that they went online to see how I preached in every situation.
Oh, okay.
Meaning that I am consistent in any context I preach the same. So this is not some kind of act, but this is who I am.
You're still long-winded.
Yeah, I'm still long-winded. My church will laugh about that too. Because, in the Episcopal Church that use without notes. I listen. I'm always cognizant that I am probably more, some ways, especially in the times that we're living, white conscious as well. Mm-hmm. And that needs to be. I will always say that it is white people who need to deal with white privilege, because we built a system that privileges us. I've always said that. And then I've always listened to people who say, hey, you might want to say it this way, or don't use that term. And my heart wasn't even using it. I'll tell this story. I had somebody, I used to say this, and I'm saying this right now. I used to say this doesn't need to be a kumbaya moment. It needs to be a kairos moment. Because, that's usually a spiritual that white people and African Americans know and everything else. Well, I had somebody call me out on that, who did it in a loving way, who's got in music, and he says you don't want to use that because that's offensive, because this was a song that slaves sang, and I wasn't even thinking about it that way.
I didn't even think about it that way,
and it pricked me. So what I said is, help me find another word that helps me keep my alliteration. So now I say it's not a cavalier moment; it's a kairos moment. But I didn't mean it in any way of affection. So I've had to learn that, and I'm so thankful that I have people who gently took me aside and says, hey, you might want to say it this way. You might not want to say it that way. And I was so touched by that. Because they said to me, you've got a powerful message, and we want you not, we don't want any boundaries, anything standing that way. And I'm so humbled by that at our church. I'm very much humbled for the way that they've received me, and they've received, my wife. I'll say this tongue in cheek, but it's true. They love her more than they love me. And rightly so.
That's usually how it works.
I would say this. I'll give a funny story. I was in a church. I was in it was my first kind of church rally coming to Orlando. I knew the pastor. He invited me in. And so when they introduced me, I was getting that introduction because people didn't know me. I was in an all black church. And, and the introduction was something like this. Well, we're open to everybody. Everybody has their different way of coming, because he's about to introduce me. And I started laughing on the inside. I'm like, oh, yeah, I got like two things right now. I take the term father, and I'm a priest, and I'm white. Oh, and I start laughing on the inside. And then I just pray. And you know me, how I pray. By the time it was finished, one of the preachers says, we didn't know Episcopal priests preach like that. I said, we all don't do, but I do. And they said, and one of them said, I forgot you said your father was an old school Pentecostal preacher. You must have channeled him. And we laugh about it. But I understand being kind of, I don't want to use the word stereotyped in that way, but, I've been that, like, oh, so you're this, and this. I'm like, no. I remember I was in a church one time in Chicago, and I was their first white intern in an all-black church. And the mother of the church, mother of the pastor, said this, well, baby, what do you eat? They all assumed I listened to country music and didn't know what I eat. I said, I'm from the South. I eat soul food. Where's the nearest soul food restaurant around here? I know there's a good one. And no, I listen to R&B and other things. I listen to all kinds of music. But, there's certain things, and it was like kind of a shock to them. And I think so for me, it's always learning. I not arrived and realized, though I choose to be an activist and an organizer, I choose to, as much as possible, and I'm using the word choose for a reason, I choose to enter into somebody else's experience, knowing that that's a choice that the people actually live it. And I know that my limitations are I will never live that choice. The things I will have to deal with is having kids, with my wife, and because of our relationship and being in a mixed cultural relationship, talking to my kids,
right?
Things of that nature. So that's where that is for me. And
I see that being a little easier for you as well. And one, like, the concern that I guess that I had was, like, just because the climate is so, like, things are so polarized right now in America, that people would potentially see you and see your personality and assume that you are appropriating where
I've had white people say that.
Yeah, and
White people's like, oh, and people have had to correct them and say, no, that's who he is.
That's who he's always been.
Yeah, that's always been. I know I have to be mindful of that too.
What were we, like 4, 3? How old were we when we started?
My further back I remember is when we were.
I remember the church across from the hospital in Pulaski.
Right. So we did some ministry there. We were at your church. We also did. We were in Golden Course together.
Yeah.
Lord, and we were always.
But even before elementary school and all of that, like we were hanging out, having play dates, sleepovers, and all of that stuff.
See, I don't remember that. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, because my grandmother and your mom were both at the hospital.
Right, and I think then they worked at another place together too.
Yeah, and then I remember going to church with my grandmother when I was itty bitty, and somehow I ended up singing at that, and I was probably 4 or 5, like, and I remember that. Like,
we would have been a little bit older because at 4 and 5 and 6, I was living in Georgia at the time. I remember elementary school, and I don't even remember how we met. I don't even know how we met. I don't know if it was.
I think it was through your mom and my grandmother.
Right, and I do know that. And I don't know if we met. I remember because we would do Golden Course together. We would, laugh, and me and you and Katura and all that. Clown. Y'all would clown on me. I'd just be there, And so, yeah, I do. And I think that it is, I think for me, it's not to be seen as a purpose, because I still acknowledge I'm privileged. I still acknowledge I'm white, no matter what.
Right.
And this is not, and my heart is for the community and to always be learning, always reading books, always being in conversation. And so I think that's where it is for me. And I hope people see that. I pray that people see that.
Right.
So I've had it on all ends. I remember even when I was working at the mission in Los Angeles, some people come up to me, older African-American gentleman, and he starts talking to me and I start talking back. He goes, "Oh my God, this is the way you talk, isn't it?" I go, "Yeah, it's not an act." I'm like, no, this was just birthed out of being raised in Pentecostalism. And I don't think certain people understand that, white Pentecostalism and Black Baptist and Black Pentecostal were always together in the mix, some way, somehow. And that we cross-pollinated. And it's because of praying to God out of our poverty.
Right.
Real poverty that brought us together. So, yeah, I did too. And I'm always listening. And I'm always, hearing and just being present. And I think I think any white ally who helps, understanding our limitations, that this is not our life.
Right.
There may be some similarities, growing up poor and poverty. There may be some other things that we can connect on. My guys would ask me at the mission, "Father, you ever been to jail or anything?" "Nope." "You ever done that?" "Nope." "How can you relate to us?" I said, "I grew up in a single parent home and my father died of HIV and AIDS." "Oh, that's it. Okay, gotcha." Or something like that was the touch point. Oh, that's how you can speak to us. So I never want to be ever come off as something I am not. I cannot be me either way. I have to be contextual with me like anybody else has to be in different situations, but it's knowing heart. And I think it's just being in a relationship with people. I've been blessed to be in relationship with you and others and gaining new relationships who have taught me so many things I look back on. And I'm thankful, because if it wasn't for the African-American church and all the forms I have experienced it, I wouldn't be a home. I was the orphan that was taken in.
Okay, because
So,
we kept you preaching. We
Lord, I would get up there.
and it was. I remember the first time that you actually preached at Bethlehem, and whenever I had introduced Pastor Mallory at the time to you, and he was just like, okay, well, Kenny's bringing them, so we're gonna see. And I remember him like literally standing up in the pulpit your entire message, like, okay, this man has a word, yeah, and he's not using a single note. Yeah, so you've turned beet red. Like
That was the Sunday. Lord have mercy, Jesus. Where there was one Sunday I preached, and I was hitting that hoop. And I hit that.
I was ready to back you up on that organ. Go for it. Let's go. Let's do
this. And our mutual friend John Skidmore goes, "How did you do that?" Because he was there that day. And I go, "Halls and the Holy Ghost." Because that honey and lemon Halls hit that right spot, and I just hit it, and it just prolonged it, and we laugh about that to this day. But yeah.
And they thought that we were rehearsing it or something before we got
no,
we're not. Like
no. Because Lord knows we didn't know. And you'd get me into some places, Lord, with some folk, and we'd sit back and laugh because it'd be church folk. But I think that's it. I think I'm hoping in the midst of all this chaos in the pandemic, people can build real relationships, whites and African Americans. And then we got to throw in, everybody coming together and acknowledging our role in racism, especially those who are the oppressor, but also just having relationship.
Right.
And I think and I'm not saying that in an individualistic way, but being in that relationship, just seeing it from somebody else's perspective. I think that's where we have to be in our country, and have real dialogue and real stuff.
Right.
And I think when I was working at the mission, my guys would talk to me, and they'd have real talk with me, and I had real talk with them. We talk real issues, especially with everything going on, and that taught me a lot.
Right.
Just to be real. I remember one student said, "Father, I want to know who I am as an identity. I can't go back to my great-grandparents, who are slaves. I want to know who I am." And we would talk about issues like that I don't have, that issue. If I want to go find out where I am, I took one of those, ancestry tests and everything else. But, I can go do the research, and I can probably find some things. But to have that identity. And so I know that's my limitation too. And so that's, I think that's where I'm at. Any last words before we actually stop recording that you want to say to people about voting, about everything we talked about? I'm going to let you have the final word.
Well, of course, in the state of Georgia, we have a runoff on January 5th for 2 Senate seats.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully we can flip those. If we flip those, then the Democratic Party will have control of Congress, across the board, the Senate and the House. I'd just like to let people that are watching know, because I know that you've done other talks on these issues and things of that sort. And in today's time, it can be a little difficult to decipher who's real about what they're saying and who's, just creating content, because again, views, can equate to dollars or whatever. I just want people who are watching to know that, you are the real deal. I appreciate you for being an ally. I didn't just, start looking at you as an ally, but you've been my brother, my friend. And you were talking about identity just a moment ago. I would not be who I am today if I did not have a best friend by the name of Charles T. Myers. you know, that there were times where I questioned my existence. I questioned who God was, and, you know, just with dealing with so many things, you know, in so many areas of life, and just trying to understand, you know, how can, you know, God be this God of cruelty, but then we say he's a God of love. Like, you really, like, you know, just and this isn't anything that I haven't told you before, but, you know, you really, you know, were that person who, you know, got me to really embrace me for me. And, you know, we used to always talk about, you know, they that worship him as worshiping the spirit and the truth. They got the spirit part down, but they, you know, they skip over the truth part, you know, and it's like you're living a life, and you're pretending, you know, for people you see every day, when, you know, God sees and knows everything that you're doing. So it's like, if you can't be real with God, who can you be real with? You know, and that's one of the things that I learned. You know, like we talk about this all the time, where, Christ doesn't come with a list of rules and regulations. It's not about a list of things that you can and cannot do. You know, it's about you developing your own personal relationship with God, and you know, you being able to hear the voice of, you know, the Holy Spirit, you know, to convict you, you know, of those things that you need to be convicted of. And that's the other thing, you know, what is sin for me may not be sin for you. You know, what it depends on what, you know, how, in my opinion, sin is anything that keeps you out of the will of God for you. Whatever God's will for your life is, if there is something, someone, some place, whatever, you know, that is, you know, that prevents you from being that, then that's sin, you know. Like, and that's one of the honest to God's things that I can say now. And some people, they question, you know, some things that I may do, or some things that I may say, you know, at times, you know, and it's because I believe in being authentic, not just with me, but with God or whatever. I know that he knows me, you know, for who I am, and, you know, and I know, you know, who I am in him. So it's just like, I don't really pay attention to what a lot of individuals say concerning, you know, just me in general for a lot of things. But you definitely, like I have to let everyone know, like I would not be where I am. I would not have the confidence that I have today if it weren't for you being, you know, honestly, I probably wouldn't have a relationship with God right now if it weren't for you, because us being raised in ministry, and us seeing so much and being exposed to so much at such a young age, you know, like I'm not surprised that so many people turn away from church, you know, after they become of age, because, you know, you see so many things that are conflicting, you know, and you help me to be able to reason with that. You help me to be able to get past what I saw and what they said, you know, what people would say, and all of that. And I just, you know, I'm honestly thankful for that, you know, like like I'm glad that I was able to establish a personal relationship with God. I'm glad that I was able to establish, you know, that intimacy with God for myself. And it was, you know, people like you and Cornella and Tashika, and, you know, and I remember we would go to, you know, to St. Augustine and the Palm Coast for like the Fellowship of Christian, you know, students and athletes.
I remember that.
Meetings and things like that. And it was just like, we, you know, it was a core group of us who, you know, it wasn't about living a facade or just doing it because our parents did it. Like, we had a genuine vested interest in wanting to know who God is and who we are. You know, we found our identities, you know, and yeah, I'm thankful for that, because God only knows what what would be going on with me now if I didn't have Jesus.
Lord Jesus, Lord, and you know what? I thank you. I thank you for all the times that you would get me. I'm so, you know, I look back over our lives and where God has brought us, like me and you and Brian. And we were younger, we were all running against each other for, you know, school politics, and none of us became politicians. We all became preachers in ministry, and that just makes me glad, you know. That makes my
Brian
heart
forgot
glad.
that I was on his. He forgot that I ran his campaign.
You was the manager of it. Y'all running against me, and you know,
Yep.
and others, you know. But to see, you know, where God has brought us, and I thank you because you did. You opened so many doors for me. You know, when others rejected me, and when others didn't understand me, you'd be like, hey, yeah, I need you here, like, when? Tonight. I need you to come pray. I need you to come preach. I need you to come do something. And
they all
really
ended with their mouths open and on the floor like, yeah.
doing ministry together, when at that time in my life, I was going through a deep depression, and I was trying to find out who I was as a preacher and where God was leading me, and feeling kind of rejected by the mainstream Christianity in our little hometown.
Right.
And you just took me in and say, hey, come preach for me here, come preach for me there, and opened up doors. So I'm very thankful for that, because those doors prepared me for where I'm at now. Guess where I'm preaching and celebrating the last, the Sunday weekend of Thanksgiving. Little St. Mary's downtown.
Okay.
I'm gonna, you know, because that was the church that got me into the Episcopal Church. I started going to that church, and that, you know, and I said, I'm going to be in town. They said, can I come preach for you and celebrate? Because just to give honor where honor was due. Mm-hmm. So we're going to stop recording. You might, and I may talk for a few more minutes, but I just want to say thank you, Kenny. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for letting.
Thanks for having me.
You know, Facebook eavesdrop on conversations that we have had all of our lives, and that we will continue to have. You are always in our heart and our prayers, and when this pandemic is over, you're coming to sing at church.
Most definitely.
My church is saying to give us a word and just sing and just bless us. So I'm looking forward to that. And I just want to thank everybody who listened to us. I know this one kind of ran a little bit longer, but it needed to, because this is what raw and real conversation have. So until next time, on the next episode of The Forerunner, thank you, and God bless you, and good night.
Good night.